This type of cardio got me shredded so fast. In just 3 months, I went from having a bit of chub in my belly to sub 10% body fat with literal male model aesthetics. So cardio is actually essential for losing that last bit of stubborn belly fat. I remember when I first started cutting, I was focusing only on my diet and cardio was not part of my routine whatsoever. So all I focused on was my calorie intake. I focused on what I was eating, the amount of calories in the foods that I was eating. And I just tried to limit my portion sizes. The issue with that is, sure, it works at the beginning stages of a fat loss phase. But after a while, your total daily calorie expenditure actually drops because your body becomes more acclimatized to the reduced calorie intake you're feeding it. So there's this thing called your basal metabolic rate, which is essentially just the amount of calories your body burns every day by resting and doing nothing. So if you were lying in bed all day, this is the amount of calories that you would burn just from your body having to undergo its maintenance functions to keep you alive. When I focused only on my diet, I was stuck at that 15% body fat range with that last bit of chubby belly fat still on me, and I couldn't get it off by just relying on my diet alone. Because what happens is that you just get extremely hungry. So back when I was at 15% body fat, I was burning only around 2,000 calories every day. So in order to be in a calorie deficit, I'd have to eat less than 2,000 calories, meaning I'm eating at something like 1,500 to 1,800 calories every day to try and continue to lose fat. Now, that was extremely unsustainable for me. I remember just living in an eternal state of hunger. I was hungry nonstop. All I would think about was food. I would constantly be walking into the kitchen, looking around the pantry, and then just snapping out of it and being like, hang on, I am actually cutting. I can't eat anything. But the fact was that I was so hungry. My body was craving food that it would just automatically, that my brain would just automatically take me to the kitchen, into the kitchen pantry, and start looking for food, opening the fridge, opening the freezer, seeing what's in there. And of course, just because you're there, occasionally you're gonna relapse and you'll eat foods that you're not supposed to be eating when you're trying to lose fat. Because I was so hungry all the time, that was the reason I stayed at 15% body fat. So although I was trying to eat at 1,500 to 1,800 calories every day to be in a deficit, I would end up just eating 2,000 and even over 2,000 calories every day. And so I wouldn't be losing fat, and I would in fact be putting on fat instead. The way I actually got to sub 10% body fat was by doing cardio and focusing instead on increasing how many calories I was burning every day. So the common advice out there is that to cut and lose fat, you predominantly should just focus on your diet. And yes, that is true, but you'll get to that point where all you have left to lose is that last bit of belly fat. And that's where cardio comes in. Because as I said, your calorie expenditure will just drop so much that to remain in a calorie deficit, you'll have to be starving yourself and you'll just be hungry all the time. So the alternative is to boost up how many calories you're burning. And you do that by doing cardio. So I went through a challenge of doing 75 hard, which is essentially you do 2 workouts every day for 75 days. What I would do was gym, running, and walking. And because I was doing the running and walking every day, it meant that my calories burned had increased by 500 to 700 every day. Meaning that now instead of just burning 2,000 calories every day, I was burning closer to 2,500 to 2,700 calories. And that meant that I could literally eat the same way I was eating. I could eat to my heart's content, and I would be effortlessly dropping fat purely because I just increased my calorie expenditure back up, making it so much easier to be in a deficit. This concept of doing cardio at those latter stages of dieting to get rid of that last bit of belly fat is especially true if you are skinny fat, which means you have low muscle mass and higher fat mass, and look something like this. The truth is, when you're skinny fat, you're not actually that fat. It's just that fat takes up a higher percentage of your total body weight. So you can compare yourself to an extremely obese person. They have a lot of fat mass and they would 100% benefit just by putting the fork down and stopping eating so much garbage food. But if you are in the skinny fat scenario, you're not actually that fat. And so sure, you'll benefit from limiting your calorie intake, but you will get to that point where all that remains is just that last bit of stubborn belly fat. And to get rid of it, cardio is the best way to do it, because you're going to reach that point where your calories burned every day just drop so low to the point you're going to be plateauing on your fat loss. And if you are skinny fat and you want to transform your physique, like I did, to the 10 out of 10 aesthetic physique, you can check out the first link in the description below, where I have a program giving you all of the information that you need to know, with a dedicated cardio routine as well that you can check out. The type of cardio I was doing specifically that got me shredded fast was low intensity, steady state cardio. What that is cardio that is low intensity and that you can sustain for 30 to 45 minutes or even longer than that. You can gauge how intensely a cardio session is by your heart rate. So you can get a rough estimate of your maximum heart rate by subtracting your age from 220. So if you're 30 years old, then 220 minus 30, your maximum heart rate would be 190 beats per minute. The best cardio for fat loss specifically is where you do your cardio sessions at 65 to 75% of your max heart rate. So if your max heart rate is 190, you should be doing your cardio sessions so that your heart rate is between 120 to 140 beats per minute. The reason low intensity works the best is because you can sustain it for the longest amount of time. That's in comparison to doing high intensity cardio that you can only last for about a minute or 2 minutes. And so because you're limited by how long you can last, you're not burning as many calories as you'd be able to do if you were just to sustain it for 45 minutes straight. And so if you do this type of cardio for 45 minutes, you're burning 500 calories, easy. And it brings your total daily calorie expenditure back up to a point where you can eat freely, to the point where you don't have to track calories. I remember I'd always be so obsessed with tracking everything on MyFitnessPal, and it would do my head in because I'd have to get the scales out. I'd have to look at the nutritional info. I'd have to scan the barcodes. When you do cardio, you can put all of that tracking nonsense to one side and forget about it, because you have this leeway now that you don't have to be tracking everything you eat to such specific detail. Now, the most important thing when it comes to cardio is that it's cardio that you like, enjoy, or at the very least can tolerate. So I remember one of my friends loves swimming. So he'd always ring me up and be like, let's go swimming. So I went swimming probably about 3 or 4 times, and I just hate swimming because whenever I get in there, I'm pretty bad at swimming. I start doing freestyle and I start like choking on the water as I'm doing it. I literally feel like sometimes I'm gonna drown when I'm swimming, even though I've had swimming lessons since I was like a baby. But because I find swimming just so difficult and unenjoyable, it's not even really that social of an experience either, because you can't talk to your friends while you're underwater. I just didn't stick to it. And now I never go swimming. I also hate just getting the chlorine all over you. And you also have to go to the pool. You have to get in your car and go somewhere. Whereas other forms of cardio like walking or running, you can just leave your house and you're starting to do it straight away. I also tried out cycling for a long time. And the thing with cycling is that I feel like when you're pedaling so hard, to get to the point where you're actually at 65 to 75% of your max heart rate, you've got to be pedaling pretty hard. And when you're pedaling that hard, I feel like my legs and quads fatigue faster than my cardio does. So I feel tired, but not in the sense of cardiovascular tiredness. The tiredness is from fatigue in my legs. And so I just can't stick to it for 30, 45 minutes plus. Heck, I can't even stick to it for 10 minutes. Same thing goes for the elliptical. I've tried the elliptical. It's a great calorie burner, but you are on a machine staring at a wall. And I just can't do that for 45 minutes straight, especially because your hands have to be grabbing the 2 bars and pushing yourself forward and back, which means you can't be on TikTok or something or scroll. So you can't even do anything like take a call, be on Instagram, be on TikTok, because you've got your arms here and you're occupied. And that's in comparison to the incline treadmill. So when you're on the incline treadmill, you're walking, you're burning calories, but you can be on your phone. You can be rotting on TikTok. You can be rotting on Instagram Reels. Sure, you'll be rotting, but at the same time, you'll be burning calories. So sure, it's okay. But I've personally found that I love running the most. I used to be that kid at school that would skip cross country, skip the school athletics carnivals, skip the swimming carnivals, skip all of the running or sporting activities. I would just say I forgot my sports uniform at home, so I didn't have to do it. I would be that kid that was just absolutely dreading the beep test in the physical education class. I was so scared of it. And so again, I would just be like, oh, I feel sick today, I can't do it. But now I run next to almost every day. I now run marathons. I've run marathons in the past. I'm training for marathons. I've got 2 marathons coming up this year. So it just goes to show you can change your beliefs. You can change what you actually enjoy. Right now, you might be sitting there thinking that, nah, no way I could get into running, or nah, no way I could get into cycling, swimming, whatever. But I think the point is you just don't know until you try it. So I did that 75 hard challenge. And because I was forced to do some form of cardio, I naturally just picked running and I ended up loving it. And it's not so much the actual act of running that I enjoy, but it's just everything surrounding it. Because you can go to things like run clubs, and my social experience from going to run clubs has actually just increased my life enjoyment so much more. So what I've found is that I've been able to get social experience from doing a type of cardio, being running. So now I don't really view running just as a form of cardio or as a way to burn calories. Rather, I see it as an opportunity to catch up with my friends and do a social activity. So if you can somehow blend cardio and your life to the point where doing a form of cardio is almost like just a social activity for you, then the process of cardio becomes so much easier because it just slots into your life seamlessly. There's no friction or resistance to doing the cardio because you're actually looking forward to it because it's just a social activity. It becomes your new going out and clubbing. But I know a lot of people aren't actually fit enough to start running. So the alternative to that, and it's something that I still do as well, is going on the incline treadmill. The incline treadmill is great because you can literally just rot on the incline treadmill. I know for a fact that you probably spend hours on your phone scrolling Instagram, scrolling TikTok, scrolling Facebook, scrolling whatever other suspect websites you might be visiting. And you can do the same thing just on the incline treadmill. So you can be burning calories. You can have your heart rate elevated. You can get all the health benefits that you get out of doing some form of cardio as well. And you can do all the rotting in the world that you want, but just on the incline treadmill as opposed to your bed or the living room couch. You can also do all your life admin. You can get on calls. You can respond to emails, respond to messages. What I do a lot is the treadmills at my gym have an inbuilt YouTube function. So you can go on YouTube and look, you can watch my videos if you want. But what I do is I go on soccer highlights and I just spam soccer highlights. I watch all the EPL matches, the La Liga matches, Champions League matches, whatever. And so you just zone out watching all that stuff. And before you know it, 30 minutes, 45 minutes have passed like that. And you've burnt 500 calories, easy. So if you've got to this point in the video, it signals to me that you are very serious about undergoing a body fat transformation. Now, I offer a skinny fat solution program. That's the first link in the description below. And I think you'd be a great fit and benefit tremendously from it if you were to join. So you can check that out. Now, if you learned anything from this video, please consider subscribing. We're into 20K subs soon, and I'll see you in the next one.